Welcome to the Retirement Wealth Podcast. We're so glad you're joining us today.
Absolutely. It's great to be here. Planning for retirement can feel overwhelming sometimes, especially when it comes to understanding tax strategies.
Right? And one key strategy that often gets overlooked is tax diversification.
Yeah, it's crucial to have a well-rounded approach. It can make a significant difference in your retirement income.
So today we're going to dive into how you can create a tax-efficient retirement plan.
We'll explore different types of accounts, how they're taxed, and the benefits of having a mix, or a diversified approach to your retirement savings.
Plus, we're going to touch on some common misconceptions about taxes in retirement and how to avoid those pitfalls.
And don't forget about the importance of planning for unexpected tax changes that can really impact your retirement nest egg.
Exactly. By the end of this episode, we hope you'll have some actionable insights that you can start using today to enhance your retirement strategy.
So let's get right into it.
Sounds good. Let's start by breaking down the different types of retirement accounts and how they're taxed.
So Emily, when we talk about tax diversification, it really hits home for a lot of people, especially right now. With inflation being what it is, folks are feeling the pinch, right? It's not just about saving for retirement anymore. It's about making sure that savings stand up to rising costs.
Absolutely, David. I've heard from listeners who are worried that their retirement savings won't stretch as far as they thought, especially with prices going up on everything from groceries to gas. They want to know how to make their money work harder for them.
Exactly. And that's where tax diversification comes into play. When you spread your investments across different tax types, like traditional IRAs, Roth IRAs, and taxable accounts, you're giving yourself some flexibility. It can be a real lifesaver during those unexpected market downturns.
Right. And with the market being so volatile lately, I can see how that flexibility would be crucial. Imagine someone who's nearing retirement and has all their savings in a traditional IRA. If the market takes a hit, they could really be in a tough spot.
Yes, I had a client, let's call her Sarah. She was planning to retire in less than a year and had a significant portion of her savings in a traditional IRA. When the market dipped, her portfolio took a hit, and she started feeling anxious about whether she could retire on time. By diversifying her tax strategy, adding a Roth component, she was able to pull from tax-free funds when the market was down, easing some of that stress.
That sounds like a smart move. And I think a lot of people don't realize how important it is to think about taxes in retirement planning. It's not just about accumulating wealth, is it? It's about keeping as much of it as you can.
Exactly. And with Social Security changes on the horizon and potential tax reforms, it's like a perfect storm of factors that can impact how much you actually keep. People really need to be proactive.
For sure. I've also noticed that healthcare costs are a big concern. With medical expenses climbing, it's essential to have a strategy in place that accounts for those potential costs.
That's a great point, Emily. Healthcare can be one of the largest expenses in retirement. I had a couple in their early 60s who were focused solely on their investment returns. They hadn't considered how much they might spend on healthcare. By incorporating a tax-efficient strategy, they were able to set aside a portion of their savings into a health savings account, which can be a fantastic tool for managing those costs.
Wow, that's a good example. It's like they were able to prepare for both immediate and future expenses by thinking ahead. And I think that emotional side of financial security is huge too. A lot of people underestimate how much peace of mind comes from knowing you've planned for the unexpected.
Absolutely. The peace of mind that comes from having a solid, adaptable plan can't be overstated. I often tell my clients that it's not just about numbers. It's about how these decisions affect their lives. A well-prepared retirement can mean traveling, spending time with family, or just enjoying everyday life without that constant worry about finances.
Yes! And don't forget about legacy planning. People want to leave something behind for their loved ones, and having a tax-efficient strategy can make a big difference in how much they actually pass on.
Right. If you've got a mix of tax-deferred and tax-free accounts, you can strategically withdraw from those accounts in a way that minimizes the tax burden on your heirs. It's all about maximizing what you can leave behind.
So many moving parts to consider. And with the current economic trends, it's really more important than ever to be proactive and think strategically about tax diversification. I mean, looking at everything from market volatility to inflation, it's all interconnected.
Exactly. And I think it's worth mentioning that we're in a period where interest rates are also fluctuating. For someone who might be considering bonds for stability in their portfolio, those can be impacted by rising rates too. So having a diversified strategy can help cushion against those shifts.
Right, so it's not just about what you have saved, it's about how you manage it. And that's where the tax diversification strategy can really shine.
Yes, and it's not just about avoiding taxes either. It's about being efficient. If you can keep more of your money working for you, that's a win. Plus, it allows for a more flexible approach to withdrawals, especially during those years when the market might not be performing as well.
I can see how all of this ties together. It's like a puzzle, and each piece, whether it's tax strategy, healthcare costs, or legacy planning, fits into the bigger picture of a secure retirement.
Exactly. And when you start to think about these different elements as interconnected, it really changes how you approach your retirement planning. You begin to see the value in having a strategy that can adapt, no matter what life throws your way.
So, David, are you ready to dive into some of those core strategies? Because I think listeners are going to want to know how to implement this in their own retirement planning.
Absolutely. Let's get into it. So, Emily, when we think about tax diversification, it's really about having a mix of different types of accounts, right? The goal is to create a strategy that allows you to manage your tax liability in retirement.
Absolutely. And, a common approach is to have a combination of taxable accounts, tax-deferred accounts like 401ks and traditional IRAs, and then tax-free accounts like Roth IRAs. Each has its own tax implications.
Right, and that mix can really help you be flexible in your withdrawals. For instance, if you find yourself in a higher tax bracket one year, you might want to draw from your Roth accounts since those withdrawals are tax-free.
Exactly. And for those who are just starting to think about this, a good rule of thumb is to aim for about 20 to 30% of your retirement savings in Roth accounts. That way, you have some tax-free income to tap into.
And speaking of rules of thumb, the 4% rule is another one that often comes up in retirement planning. It suggests that you can withdraw 4% of your retirement savings each year without running out of money over 30 years. But there's more to consider, right?
Yes, for sure. The 4% rule is a great starting point, but it assumes a balanced portfolio. So if you're looking at a 70/30th stock-to-bond portfolio, that might work. But if your asset allocation is heavily skewed, you might need to adjust that percentage.
Exactly, and remember that market conditions can impact your withdrawals too. If the market takes a downturn early in your retirement, it could affect the sustainability of that 4% withdrawal.
That's why having different buckets for different needs can be helpful. Like using the bucket strategy where you divide your assets into short-term, medium-term, and long-term buckets. Each bucket can have different risk levels and withdrawal strategies.
Yes, and the first bucket might hold cash or cash equivalents for the first few years of retirement. The second bucket could be more conservative investments, and the third may be stocks for long-term growth. That way, you're not forced to sell stocks during a downturn.
And it gives you peace of mind knowing that you have your immediate needs covered without stress. Now let's talk about asset allocation. What are some general guidelines folks should keep in mind?
A common guideline is to subtract your age from 100 to determine the percentage of your portfolio that should be in stocks. So if you're 60, you'd want about 40% in stocks and 60% in bonds. But of course, that's just a starting point.
Right, and it depends on your risk tolerance and time horizon. Some people might feel comfortable taking on more risk, while others might want to play it safe. Plus, as you age, you typically want to shift towards more conservative investments.
Absolutely. And don't forget about tax implications when you're choosing your investments. For example, holding bonds in a tax-deferred account can be beneficial since they generate interest income that's taxed at your regular income tax rate.
Great point. And then for stocks, especially those that pay qualified dividends or have the potential for long-term capital gains, it might be better to hold those in a taxable account.
Exactly. And if you're considering real estate, that can also play a role in your diversification strategy. Real estate can provide rental income and appreciation, but it's also important to consider the tax benefits.
Definitely. You can have deductions for mortgage interest and property taxes, and when you sell, if you meet certain criteria, you may exclude a significant amount of capital gains from taxes.
Plus, if you hold real estate long enough, you can benefit from depreciation, which can offset some of your income. It's definitely a more complex area, but can be a great asset in your portfolio.
And then there's the role of annuities. Some people shy away from them, but they can provide a guaranteed income stream, which can be incredibly comforting in retirement.
Yes, but it's important to understand the fees and the terms. Fixed annuities can be a good addition for those who want stability. Just make sure it fits into your overall strategy without locking up too much of your money.
And let's not forget about Social Security optimization. It's a critical piece of the puzzle for many retirees. Delaying benefits can significantly increase your monthly payout, which plays into your overall withdrawal strategy.
Right, and the longer you can wait, up to age 70, the more you can maximize that benefit. It's often worth running the numbers to see how that plays into your income planning.
And speaking of planning, another key consideration is required minimum distributions, or RMDs. Once you hit age 72, you're required to start withdrawing from your tax-deferred accounts.
Exactly. And those withdrawals can bump you into a higher tax bracket, which is why planning ahead is crucial. You want to strategize how and when to take those distributions to minimize taxes.
So if someone is nearing retirement, they should definitely have a clear understanding of their RMDs and how they fit into their income strategy.
Yes, and this is where tax savings techniques can come into play. For instance, if you're charitably inclined, you can use a qualified charitable distribution, QCD, from your IRA to satisfy your RMD without the tax burden.
That's a great strategy. It not only helps with taxes, but also supports causes you care about.
Exactly. And there's also tax loss harvesting, which can be a useful tool in taxable accounts. By selling investments that have lost value, you can offset gains and potentially reduce your tax bill.
Right, and being proactive about these strategies can lead to significant tax savings over time.
That's the key. Being proactive rather than reactive can make a world of difference in your retirement planning.
Now that we've covered these strategies, let's transition to some common pitfalls people might encounter when trying to implement these strategies effectively.
So, Emily, one of the most common pitfalls I see people fall into when planning for retirement is overlooking the sequence of returns risk.
Right, that's a big one. It sounds complicated, but it really just means that the order in which you experience investment returns can have a huge impact on your portfolio, especially in the early years of retirement, right?
Exactly. I had a client, let's call him Bob. He retired in 2007, just before the market crash. He had a nice nest egg, but then, the market dropped significantly right at the start of his withdrawals.
Ouch. That must have been tough for him.
Bob had planned to withdraw a certain percentage annually, but with the market downturn, his portfolio took a hit. He ended up having to withdraw more than he intended, which really hurt his long-term outlook.
So the lesson there is to be mindful of how much you're withdrawing in those early years, right?
Definitely. It's crucial to have a withdrawal strategy that accounts for potential market volatility. Having a cash reserve or a more conservative allocation can help mitigate that risk.
Yeah, and what about taxes? I feel like that's often overlooked too.
For sure. A lot of retirees don't consider how taxes will impact their withdrawals. I've seen folks, like Susan, who didn't factor in taxes when deciding how much to take from their traditional IRAs.
And that can lead to some surprises at tax time, right?
Absolutely. Susan ended up taking out a larger sum to cover her living expenses. But then she got hit with a higher tax bill than she expected. It really cut into her budget for the year.
So it's not just about how much you withdraw, but also from which accounts, right?
Exactly. Having a mix of taxable, tax-deferred, and tax-free accounts can give you the flexibility to manage tax implications more effectively.
That makes a lot of sense. And what about healthcare? I know that's a big concern for many retirees.
Oh, it really is. Many underestimate the costs associated with healthcare in retirement. Let's take Mike, for example. He assumed Medicare would cover most of his expenses.
But that's not always the case, right?
Right. Mike didn't consider supplemental insurance or long-term care insurance. When health issues arose, he faced significant out-of-pocket costs that really strained his budget.
Wow. So planning for healthcare really needs to be a priority.
Yes, and it's important to start that conversation early. Another pitfall is underestimating longevity. Many people just don't plan for a longer retirement.
I can see how that would be dangerous, especially with people living longer these days.
Exactly. I had a couple, let's call them Jane and Tom. They planned for a 20-year retirement, but both ended up living into their 90s.
That's a long time.
It is. They didn't have enough saved, and they had to adjust their lifestyle significantly in their later years, which was really tough for them.
So they had to rethink their whole retirement strategy. How can someone avoid that?
Well, it's about planning for the unexpected, building a financial plan that considers longevity, maybe even modeling scenarios that extend beyond your average life expectancy.
And then there's the issue of asset allocation, right?
Definitely. Having a diversified portfolio is crucial. I've seen retirees who are too conservative, or conversely too aggressive with their investments, which really hurt their returns.
Can you give an example of that?
Sure. There was a retiree named Gary. He was very risk-averse and decided to move most of his assets into bonds when he retired.
Sounds safe, but...
Right, but with interest rates low, his returns were barely keeping up with inflation. He found himself struggling to maintain his lifestyle because his purchasing power was eroding.
That's a tough lesson to learn.
It really is. On the flip side, I've seen people who invested too aggressively in stocks right before a market downturn. They panicked and sold low, which was devastating for their retirement funds.
So it's about finding that right balance, huh?
Exactly. A well-thought-out asset allocation strategy can really make a difference in the longevity of your portfolio.
And we can't forget about Social Security. I know many people claim benefits too early without realizing the long-term implications.
Yes, claiming too early can reduce your benefits significantly. I had a client named Linda who started taking her benefits at 62.
And what happened?
Well, she didn't realize that by waiting until her full retirement age, she could have received a much higher monthly benefit. Because she needed to rely on that income for a longer period, it really impacted her finances.
So it's important to weigh those options carefully.
Absolutely. Understanding the timing of Social Security and how it fits into your overall retirement strategy is critical.
These are all really valuable insights, David. So if someone finds themselves in one of these situations or recognizes any of these red flags, what can they do?
The first step is to reassess your financial plan. Look at your withdrawal strategy, your asset allocation, and your tax situation.
And maybe consult with a financial advisor who understands these issues?
Yes, absolutely. A good advisor can help you navigate through these complexities and adjust your plan to better meet your goals.
Sounds like the key is to be proactive rather than reactive, right?
Exactly. Staying informed and being willing to adjust your strategy as needed can make a big difference in your retirement experience.
Thanks for sharing these insights, David. It's so helpful to understand how to avoid these common pitfalls.
My pleasure, Emily. It's all about building a secure and enjoyable retirement.
All right, let's talk about what steps listeners can take next to ensure they're on the right path.
So, now that we've laid out the importance of tax diversification, let's dive into some immediate steps that folks can take, right?
Absolutely. I think starting with some actionable steps is key. Where do you suggest they begin, David?
Well, first off, I'd recommend checking your current investment accounts. Look at how your assets are allocated across taxable, tax-deferred, and tax-free accounts. A good starting point is using online tools from platforms like Vanguard or Fidelity. They have retirement calculators that can help you visualize your future needs.
That makes sense. Those tools can really help clarify where you stand, huh?
Exactly. And don't forget about Schwab's retirement planning resources. They provide calculators and even some educational materials that might give you a broader perspective.
Yeah, I've heard good things about their resources. What about Social Security?
Great point. If you haven't already, check out ssa.gov to get a handle on your Social Security benefits. You can create an account there and review your earnings history, which is super important for understanding your future benefits.
Right. And knowing your benefits can really help when you're planning how to draw from your other retirement accounts.
Absolutely. And speaking of planning, I'd encourage people to explore some tax software too. Programs like TurboTax or H&R Block can help you see how your withdrawals might impact your taxes in retirement.
That's a good idea. It's all about understanding those tax implications, isn't it?
For sure. And then there are financial planning apps. Tools like Personal Capital or Mint can help you track your overall financial health. You can monitor your spending, investments, and even project future expenses.
I like that. It's all about keeping an eye on things and making adjustments as needed, right?
Exactly. And speaking of adjustments, I encourage everyone to start reviewing their portfolio at least quarterly. It doesn't have to be overwhelming. Just a quick check-in to see if your allocations still align with your retirement goals.
That sounds manageable. Even just a little bit of time dedicated to that can make a big difference down the line.
And it's never too late to make improvements. Whether you're 10 years away from retirement or already there, it's all about being proactive.
Totally! And running retirement projections can be a game changer. You can use those tools to simulate different scenarios based on changes in your income, expenses, or investment returns.
Right. And don't hesitate to reach out to a financial advisor if you feel stuck. A professional can help guide you through these projections and clarify your options.
That's so true. Sometimes just having that extra support can make a world of difference.
And for those who enjoy reading or listening, there are some great books and podcasts out there. For instance, The Boglehead's Guide to Investing is a classic and really dives into investment strategies and tax implications.
I've heard about that one. And what about podcasts? Any recommendations?
Sure. The Retirement Answer Man is a fantastic resource. It tackles various aspects of retirement planning, including taxes. It's engaging and full of useful insights.
Sounds like something our listeners would enjoy.
And let's not forget about forming good habits. Start small. Maybe set a reminder to review your accounts quarterly, or even just spend a little time each month thinking about your tax situation.
Those small steps can really add up over time, can't they?
Definitely. And remember, it's all about progress, not perfection. Just take those first steps, and you'll find yourself on the right track.
With these tools in your pocket, you're ready to strengthen your retirement plan. Let's recap what we've covered today.
Well, as we wrap up this episode, let's quickly recap some of the key takeaways from our discussion on tax diversification strategies for retirement.
Yeah, it's so important to remember that having a mix of taxable, tax-deferred, and tax-free accounts can really help you manage your tax burden in retirement.
Right, and starting early with this strategy can make a big difference. The more time your investments have to grow, the better off you'll be.
Absolutely. And don't forget about the flexibility it gives you. Having different types of accounts allows you to adjust your withdrawals based on your income and tax situation each year.
And it's crucial to revisit your strategy regularly. Life changes and tax laws change, so staying on top of your plan is vital.
Yeah, it's all about being proactive, right? Building and protecting your retirement wealth is a journey, not a destination.
Exactly. As you move closer to retirement, or even if you're already there, keeping an eye on these strategies can help ensure you're maximizing your savings.
So, if you found today's conversation helpful, we'd love for you to like this episode, subscribe to our channel, and, comment below with your biggest takeaway or any questions you might have.
And if you know someone who's planning for retirement or is already in it, share this episode with them. It could really make a difference.
Definitely. And next time, we'll dive into a fascinating topic. Is buying property in retirement a good idea? You won't want to miss that.
Thanks for joining us today. And remember, your retirement is worth investing in.
Yes. Take care, everyone, and we'll see you next time.